Hello and welcome to Beyond the Mirror podcast. Today I'm delighted to welcome a special guest who came all the way from Winchester, Chris. Chris is a director and founder of insurance company that's specializing in providing insurance for medical, cosmetic and aesthetic practices. And we have our insurance with Chris. They have been exceptionally helpful on so many occasions, and one of the biggest point of difference that I can actually take my phone call and get an expert advice the same day, which answers all our questions. So I thought after such fantastic experience and such a gray areas in medical aesthetic industry, it's so important to bring the light on something that is actually so important to clinics. So Chris, thank you very much for taking your time and coming all the way here. So can you please tell us a little bit about your company and actually why did you start specializing in insurance for cosmetic industry? So how did it all started?
Thanks, Olha, and thanks for inviting me. Lovely to be here. I knew my business partner for a number of years. He was previously head of operations at what was called the NHS Litigation Authority. So that's the bit of the NHS that deals with all the claims against the NHS. And we, as we chatted, took the view that the healthcare sector was not well served by insurance. So we sought to set up an insurance broker to serve the healthcare community and serve them well. Why Aesthetics was I went to a show where Professor Sines of the JCCP was talking, and we thought that was interesting and an interesting approach. And I think they'll talk about regulation later, but clearly people looking to bring some order and structure and ensure the quality of healthcare professionals. So we thought that was an interesting sector to serve.
So I think many people often not realize how complex aesthetic is, and actually many people don't realize what is aesthetic is. Still, a lot of patients have misconception that that is a beauty treatment. But from insurance and legal point of view, what makes aesthetic is different from other areas of medical field?
I think, as you say, especially right now and increasingly right now, particularly medical aesthetics is really moving more into health longevity, what's called health span rather than lifespan. So ensuring not only do you live longer, but you actually are healthy for longer, so you can have a good life for longer. It is adapting all of the time. We had a lovely Japanese drink as we entered, which is
absolutely.
There's always something new. There's always something different. It is developing in incredible ways. I think the understanding that we're seeing coming through from biochemistry and all sorts of things around how the human body works and what causes aging and how to deal with aging rather than just sort of normal aesthetics is just trying to patch over the aging process, whereas medical aesthetics now is very much about trying to deal with and slow down the aging process and slow down the onset of critical disease and all these things. It's enormously complex. It's always something new, and we think we understand it quite well. But I now have a friend of mine who was a pharmacist originally and is very much into researching all the new stuff. I rely on him quite a lot. I've been discussing all sorts of new treatments with him just a couple of days ago.
And from the medical legal perspective, how is it important for the patient to know that practice has insurance, and vice versa? How is it important for the aesthetic practice to have the right insurance in place?
Yeah, so insurance is there for when it goes wrong, and insurance is there to provide the money, the compensation for when it goes wrong, and people who are injured need to be compensated, and that's what insurance is for. Mm-hmm. So I think ultimately that's why it's important. Within that, and this is very much what we're about, for us, it's about supporting the whole process, so making sure that when things go wrong, it is dealt with quickly and effectively and people are compensated. Similarly, as a practice, people can make spurious claims. People might try and make claims to get refunds. So it's trying to filter out who's genuine, who isn't, and get things dealt with quickly and effectively, and the insurance is there to pay as needed.
So basically, would I understand that insurance is kind of in between to protect both?
Yes.
Patient as well as practitioner?
Yes, yeah, I think that's very fair. I mean, for our point of view, the insurance should be impartial. The purpose of the insurance is is to be there to provide the compensation as it's needed, and we should be impartial, and we shouldn't be afraid of providing compensation if it's needed.
For example, at the moment, there are a lot of information in press where a patient has been victims of unlicensed treatments. And often in this case, the person or the not clinic, I would say probably it would be salon or just some organization that provided treatment, may not even have insurance in place. So what is the implication of that? Like what patients should do, what clinic should do if there is no insurance in place and treatment has been done wrong from all the angles and perspectives?
Yes, so that's it's terrible. And
Unfortunately, but it's reality in the UK.
There is some reality, and there's some awful stories that emerge, even from qualified medical professionals who are a little bit unethical, but the whole spectrum. So unfortunately, at the moment, unlike in full medical care, so as a doctor or a dentist, you have to have insurance by law to practice. For aesthetics, that's not true. So strictly speaking, as an aesthetics practice, you do not have to have insurance. So they're not breaking, people who have no insurance, not breaking any laws. It's not illegal. They can do what they like. Maybe that would be one of the first things to check as a potential patient, is that your practitioner is insured, because that will give you at least some comfort that somebody thinks that their practice is reasonable. Again, we would encourage checking their qualifications and making sure they're adequately qualified and all those factors. But at the basic level, make sure that they've got insurance, because then there's somebody to pay if they've got a claim. I mean, strictly speaking, you do have a claim against the individual, whether they're insured or not, and you can make a claim, you can win a claim against the individual if they are uninsured, but you don't know whether they've got enough assets to pay the compensation or not. It's just a lot more difficult. So I think as aesthetics becomes more regulated and better managed and controlled, I would imagine there will become a time when there will be a legal requirement for insurance. But until that day, people don't have to be insured, and the consequences are pretty awful. So
also, there are many medical professionals, practitioners who probably just starting their journey listening to this podcast. What your recommendation to them, how they should approach process of insurance, how important to have one in place, and also I think what probably interests them as well is the cost.
Yes, yeah. So the cost is not huge at the moment. I mean, it's the claims in aesthetics are not vast, and again, a lot of what we try and do is we try and work with the good quality trainers and the good practitioners and identify the good practitioners and try and protect a good group, a group who really want to provide a good service and not injure people and manage their business as well. So we are trying to keep the claims low so that we can keep the cost of insurance low. Insurance prices will be different by claims, so we are very sensitive to what we would think are unethical practitioners and so on, and try and make sure that we don't have any of those in our group. So I think it's really trying to find a good insurer, a good insurance partner. You should think about your insurance in some extent as a long-term partnership between you and them, and they should be looking to protect you, and you should be looking to run a really solid practice that doesn't generate too many claims and protect your insurer. And between the two, you can keep the cost low, but it's there if you need it. So really think about your insurer, select your insurance partner quite carefully would be my advice, and make sure that you're happy to have a long-term relationship with them where you can work together and keep the costs low, but be sure that the money and the protection is there. You know, things do go wrong at the end of the day. And that's what the insurance is there for. It should protect you in those circumstances.
So you mentioned select your insurer carefully. So what, in your professional point of view, from inside of industry, selection process can be? What practitioners should be looking for when they're selecting their insurance? Because I don't think that there are as many insurance as practices at the moment, but the markets certainly have widening, and there is a new insurance providers entering the industry. So how to make sure that actually you have the insurance that is there for you to help you with the right advice, protect your interest when you need it. So what practitioners should look for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they should look for somebody who understands them, understands their practice, understands the industry. As you mentioned earlier, somebody who's there on the phone, should you need them, can actually give you advice and give you proper real advice and turn it around quite quickly, because again, when things start going wrong in aesthetics practice, it is, at the end of the day, people are getting injured and it all gets quite emotive quite fast. So you actually have to deal with the situations quite fast and de-escalate the emotion. So that's very important. So I think it's really look for somebody that you can feel comfortable with, that you think understands you and your business. You would be comfortable that they will come and help and support you at a time of crisis. I mean, if you think, hopefully you'll never need your insurance, but one day you might, and what you really want to be confident of is those people will come and help you when you have that problem. Now, price is clearly an issue, but one thing to think about is the cheaper the insurance, the less resource people have to come and help you. So you might want to balance between that. As my colleague Roger, who deals with all the claims, says, he says when the phone's ringing off the hook at 8:30 in the morning and somebody's got a crisis and a patient who's been injured, the price is the last thing that's mentioned.
Yes.
Now, clearly we try and keep the prices low, and we can with keeping the claims at bay, but we're not the cheapest because we provide a level of service to support our practitioners.
I don't think you can be the best and the cheapest. That's never a combination that goes hands in hands together.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
I agree with you. And you mentioned about that you're selecting practitioners, like kind of checking that they are ethical and practicing within their expert means. How do you do that? So, for example, could you give us someone that you wouldn't want to insure, or what you're looking at when practitioner approach you and want to have an insurance? What few most important things that you check to make sure, yes, we can protect this person if they would need our help?
Yeah. So the best thing, and maybe the best thing both ways around, is a good solid recommendation from somebody you already know and trust. And as you know, we work a lot with Cosmetic Courses, the training company. So they have excellent training and excellent trainers. The really top-level practitioners such as yourself, and recommendations that would come through from you earlier, trust them, because you wouldn't recommend anybody who isn't at the top of their game. So that's very much where we start. I think it's funny. It's all about attitude, and I mentioned you picked this up as well. You can tell very quickly what somebody's attitude is, and it's about whether their attitude is providing quality, providing service, caring for their patients, or whether they're in business just to make money and they only care about money. And that, again, in the discussions about price and premium, comes across very quickly as to whether they're worried about the coverage or whether they're just worried about the price. So we pick up, I think, quite quickly on signs that people are, whether they're money motivated in the business or whether they're service motivated. And we're very much about people who are service motivated.
Okay, I think that is a very good piece of advice there. And can you share, obviously without naming any personal details or names, for example, case or example where the right insurance in place, like your insurance, has been a success story for the clinic that protected the clinic at the time and was able to make the difference in the difficult time for the practitioner, possibly patient. So can you share any examples like that?
Yeah, sure. And I won't name names as you've asked me to, but if you go to the Olha Advisors YouTube channel, there's some people who've gone on video and said very kind things about the way we've helped them. And it's very much, it's exactly as you say, it's about helping people de-escalate situations quite quickly. So one example that springs to mind is a lady with quite a successful couple of clinics. And she's been in practice for 17 years and had her first complaint ever about a year ago. That sort of all started on a Friday afternoon. And again, the patient getting more and more agitated, more and more aggressive emails and texts coming through. And that's something we see. These things escalate very quickly. So we responded to her on Friday afternoon. We managed to respond to the patient in a way to get them at least comfortable that we could hold off. The lady actually said she didn't want to deal with it over the weekend. It wasn't a desperate situation, and actually she didn't want this person running a weekend. So we managed to do that, kept it at bay for the weekend, and then managed to get the issue all sorted out and resolved by lunchtime on Monday. I think it it was something that there was no negligence. Everything she'd done in the practice was absolutely fine, but because the patient hadn't had a perfect experience, the practitioner decided to give a partial refund of the fees. So we got that sorted out on Monday. Everything calmed down, and it all went away. And that's very much what we're about. We're about trying to get those situations resolved quickly and effectively. If you don't do that, it can all escalate. The patient can get more and more angry and annoyed. That's when they'll start talking to lawyers. That's when lawyers will start saying, oh, that's terrible, I can get you £10,000. And it all escalates and you start getting legal proceedings and it gets a lot more expensive and a lot more ugly. So we're all about trying to get the situation de-escalated and resolved as fast as possible. There is always a decision as to whether you refund fees or not. Clearly, if you refund everybody, then you haven't got a business anymore. So you don't want to do that. So it's quite a fine business judgment call, but we will help practitioners in making that call. It's, how defensible are you? How negligent was I or not? All these questions. And I think practitioners kind of know. But it's always good to have a sounding board and some kind of support in that, so you can really make an assessment and then decide whether you want to make a refund or offer a refund or not, whether it's worth your while from a business perspective.
That is a very interesting topic on itself, refund, because, for example, I'm a dentist by background, still practice dentistry, although it's like a very minimal part of my clinical time, but I have a dental protection insurance for that as well, of course. And in professional field conversation, often comes across from dental practitioners as well as aesthetic practitioner that insurance companies, in some cases, they actually encourage to issue refund to de-escalate situation. Then you also said it can easily bring you out of business, because if nothing has been done wrong, but patient realize that actually maybe I spent too much and I would like to have some money back. So, and it always could be played by both sides. So what is general recommendation if nothing has been done wrong, if the treatment has been performed correctly, but if it's more issue with personalities probably, or just a general experience, probably customer didn't like how the phone has been answered or email been answered to them, what is recommendation in this case? Is it refund a good things in those situations? If everything's been done right, should you actually stick to your guns and said, actually, I have done nothing wrong, you chose to have the treatment, your result is good, I believe I not in a position to refund you a treatment?
I think so from our perspective, we're very supportive of that attitude and very upfront about it. And that's part of our service in helping you defend yourself and ultimately your business. It's not just your practice, it's your business. Because the other problem you got, if you start giving refunds, then guess what? Everybody talks, word will go round. Go to this clinic and just complain a bit, and they'll give you half your money back. So, so you want to be really quite robust on that front. And certainly, if you are, in this day and age, it sort of moves on from insurance and negligence, but in this day and age of social media, you're always got the blackmail of social media, I'll give you a bad review, and so on. And so we have actually started to develop tactics and techniques for dealing with that kind of blackmail of, I didn't like, the receptionist was rude to me, or, this didn't work out, and I look terrible, and I want half my money back, and if you don't do it, I'm going to put bad reviews out there.
It was very interesting that you mentioned social media and different aspects with regards to reviews. We have had twice a situation in our clinic, and one patient left us, I wouldn't say horrible, but negative review in the situation where has been nothing done wrong, but then she just contacted us and said that she left a review and she would consider to remove it if we refund the treatment. And another case was not related to refund, but we refused the treatment for the patient due to their medical condition, and they left the clinic, and then we found later that they left us a negative review that we refused to treat them. And I think this review actually probably should be read as a positive, because it's indication that clinicians not treat everyone and make the right selection in the best interest of patient health. But I'm actually quite interested to hear what processes you have for that as an insurance, because we have had this experience ourselves as a clinic.
Perfect. Can I pick up on the point saying that the fact you refuse to treat someone as a positive, we would absolutely support that as the insurers. It is elective. If you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel it's appropriate, you can and should refuse to treat. And to be honest, the majority of claims we see is people always knew they probably shouldn't have provided that treatment to that person. So trust your gut, be strong. That's great to hear it. In terms of the social media, absolutely. So people use negative reviews as some kind of leverage quite often, and as you say, quite blatantly. I mean, it is literally blackmail. It's, if you don't give me my money back, I will put a negative review. So the way we encourage dealing with that is to clearly you cannot talk about the patient's treatment without their permission. So the first thing you have to do is go on social media and say, well, I'm terribly sorry that your treatment was unsatisfactory and we'd love to explain the situation to everybody, but we can't do that without your permission to discuss your treatments and so on. Now, it's almost certain that they won't provide that. And so if you just do that, it's almost then becomes the story that they won't give permission and nobody can hear the other side. Clearly, if they do actually give permission, then you can present the other side. But for us, it's all about getting that balance in the story and making sure that people understand there is another side. I think people who look at those negative reviews think that they can go and put a negative review and everybody will believe negativity. Now, the reality is people aren't as daft as that. People know that there's definitely two sides to the story. So as long as you start to present at least that there might be another side, or if you can present your point of view in the other side and you have a robust case, that's how we deal with it. And we've only had about 2 or 3 cases ourselves, but that's generally quite an effective way of doing it.
Also an interesting question. So for example, if, because sometimes patient could be quite aggressive and attacking clinics, practitioners, is there any support that you're offering? Can the clinic counter put the claim against the patient if they become unreasonable and constantly threatened by emails, social media, messages? I've heard some stories like that from colleagues as well, where things go completely out of the line. So can insurance step in and help and protect practitioner in this case?
So it's not so much insurance, but it's again what we do, and it is unfortunate. And I'm afraid you have to go down the legal routes. You have to go down the routes of injunctions and restraining orders. And ultimately, my business partner Roger has, on very rare occasions, suggested to practitioners that they need to contact the police. So it is an issue, and they are the normal legal channels for dealing with that. And we do support people in doing it because it's terrible, but it does happen. Yes.
So, and you mentioned about regulations. So we know that there is a new regulation coming in place. I don't know if we have any timeline on that yet, but I think the first step has been done. So what impact you see on the place of insurance for that? Would that mean that every aesthetic clinics that receive a licensing from the council would need to have the right insurance in place?
So that might well be something that brings in at least the need for insurance, because the council could insist for a license, for sure. It's interesting, the legislation's there, the legislation's on the books, which puts the responsibility for licensing both clinics, practices and practitioners with the local authority. So it's with the Trading Standards Department of your local authority. Now, trading standards probably do not have the skills, understanding, or anything to assess or manage aesthetics practitioners. So I think the majority of them haven't done anything as yet. So that's why it's a bit grey. It's the legislation's there, but nobody's really implementing it, and the people who are tasked with implementing it aren't implementing it because they don't really have the resource or understanding to do it. So for us, again, we think it's great. We do absolutely think that aesthetics, and as it gets increasingly complex and more driven into real healthcare and longevity, really does need really good training, really good regulation, and really good underpinning. We like everybody wait and see what happens. I think from our perspective with insurance, we would only deal with practitioners that we know, trust, think are competent and capable, and that's a criteria for giving them insurance. So it doesn't change our views and approach to insurance at all. We're here to back practitioners who we think are capable and back them well. But yeah, it's definitely a good thing, but it's I think it's going to be grey and slow to come in.
So when do you think practically it will take place?
Yeah.
What's your guess?
Long time in the future, I think, especially in the current environment. I mean, local authorities are very poorly funded at the moment. They probably need more people. They possibly need training for those people. I think they're absolutely swamped. It's it's a balance between the local authorities and the Care Quality Commission. I think the Care Quality Commission ducked it because they didn't want all of that work and all of that responsibility, and they're swamped anyway. So I think it's going to be a really, just overall, as an overall comment on healthcare, and we're talking more about the whole idea of medical aesthetics and that being more about longevity and wellness and well-being, and that's much more of a real sort of medical treatment area. And I think overall the general issue you've got is the practice in that area is advancing a lot faster than the regulation. So you're in this classic sort of new territory zone where the regulation is not really keeping up with the practice, which is quite a risky area for everybody. Practitioners not knowing what the regulation is, patients not knowing what's regulated and what isn't regulated, and so on. So I think it's very much for the leading practitioners in many ways to step up and be very clear as to what's known and what's unknown in that area, and what works and what doesn't work, and what's proven and what isn't proven. And as an insurance company, we're very much about working with the practitioners who have that knowledge and those skills and that knowledge, who can put it out there and provide excellent and new and innovative treatments and services and so on. We think that's great, but it's you have to be careful, and we also support them in that regulatory world as well. So we do spend quite a lot of time reading the regulations and interpreting them, and more than happy to talk through with people where we are and what our views are. But I think for a while you'll be in a situation where the regulation lags the practice.
But would I be right to kind of summarize all this, because I think what is important, the public, the patient out there, they would like to think that they receive a safe treatment when they come to the practice, and I think that is just the bottom line. We want to ensure that patient receives the best care. At the end of the day, they come to us not because they're ill, but because they want to feel better than they did before the treatment. So I think that for a patient, probably they need to look that practitioner is medically qualified, that they have insurance in place. I would say CQC registration is essential these days, and the practitioner has the right experience. And I probably would say don't go with the first one, see how you feel, see the place. So I hope you don't mind. As a leading practitioner, I took a lead, and I think it's very important for the public to be safe as well.
And I think, again, you should not let a practitioner who you don't feel comfortable with do anything to you.
Yeah.
And as part of that, especially as it gets more medical, is at the core of the whole medicine and defending practitioners is you need to establish with the patient that the benefits of the treatment outweigh the risks. And if you don't think your practitioner can do that, or not to a level where you're comfortable and satisfied, you should not be seeking that treatment. So the practitioner should be making sure that happens, but you as a patient should be comfortable. And that's very much around, especially with the novel treatments, that's how we approach it, is can we find enough evidence to get comfort ourselves that a practitioner can assess that the treatment is in the patient's best interests, yes.
And Chris, I just would like your opinion as from your professional perspective and from insurance point of view. So some patient out there class those treatment as beauty. I see it as a medical. Mm-hmm. So what you would say is aesthetic clinics, longevity treatment, is it pure vanity beauty treatment? Is it the procedure compared to eyebrow wax, or is it a serious medical intervention with its implications and long-term effects?
Yeah, so I now differentiate between what we call aesthetics and medical aesthetics. So I imagine that when you started practice, you did some anti-wrinkle and some fillers and things which were sort of good, but relatively surface level. It takes the wrinkles out with the anti-wrinkle and so on. It puffs up lips and changes the shape of the face with the fillers and so on. But as more is being discovered, and it is now moving from something that is sort of patching over the problems of aging to actually directly dealing and tackling with what causes aging, what drives aging, and so on, and that is medical at the end of the day. So I think you will start to see a split really between what is pure beauty, and you might have a bit of anti-wrinkle and a bit of fillers, and sort of at a very base level, and then you will see a sort of a new branch emerge, which will be a medical aesthetics, which is all about health span, longevity, and maintaining looks and tackling aging is all a part of that.
But would you put anti-wrinkle and fillers, is it a confident part of medical longevity as well?
It will certainly would be, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that all falls within the whole spectrum, if you like. And all these issues, hormones, menopause, all these sorts of issues fall into that section. So you might have some practitioners who still do it, but as a sort of top up to nails and eyebrows and those sorts of things, but very much on a looks appearance basis. I think where the real practice is, and whether that should persist or not, is a question to be answered. But certainly in terms of the high ends, the end that we want and that we would want to support, and the best practitioners will all be, as you say, medically qualified, moving on to provide a lot more than just anti-wrinkle and fillers, and that will be all around health span, lifespan, longevity, maintaining energy, feeling good, that whole area, and that's really starting to emerge, and it's really emerging fast and taking off now.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, since I've started in aesthetic core in 2011, and even back then, my primary interest was in complex health, skin health, and I never believed in this superficial quick fix. So that is where my passion and Beyond the Mirror comes, because I think no matter how complex or how simple treatment is performed, it has much deeper impact on the patient life. And sometimes they might start with anti-wrinkle treatment, but they know what their journey should be, they have their plan, and this small change, often this first seed on the long road to the health, wellness and longevity. But I ask every guest of my podcast, do you agree with this point of view? Do you believe in Beyond the Mirror, that what we do on the surface have impact much deeper, and it's not just about the look, it's about personality, it's about doing more for yourself, it's becoming a better version of you today than you have been yesterday?
I think to be honest, that's the only reason why you should be having aesthetic treatment, in my point of view. So yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very encouraging to see the medical aesthetics emerging. And I think you're right. I think the top end of the practitioners have always seen even the early days of aesthetics as step one on that journey. And it's just great to see that that's really taking off and becoming it's a real area of medicine now. It's still sort of emerging and a little bit fluid, and a lot of the treatments some of them are more controversial and stuff like that, because people are finding out, people are testing. I think there's so much biochemistry involved in understanding the body and the medical processes now, which you've been to med school, I haven't, but my understanding is that there's an awful lot of stuff that's quite central to this, which isn't massively covered in med school. So the whole sort of setup is changing, and the knowledge you need as a practitioner is changing rapidly.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Chris, and if patient, practitioner want to connect with you, might need your services, so where can they find more information about you?
Okay, the best thing is probably our website. So it's Owlicity, which is owl like the bird, then the letter I, and then city, owlicity.co.uk. You can contact us through the website.
Thank you very much, Chris. It has been a great pleasure, deep conversation, a lot of questions answered. I'm sure that people find a lot of useful and helpful information for themselves. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.